Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. Welcome to Saturday Morning with George and Phil, here to help you become the best version of yourself. We're all dealing with something we want to improve, whether that's getting in shape, struggling in a job that we're not happy with. And every week, George Murray and Phil Connor are here to help you talk through that and figure out how you can become the best version of yourself. I am not George or Phil, but I am excited to be here. Guest host Eric Harkins, and really excited to be joining George and Kathy for what I know is going to be a really engaging conversation this morning. I know that the program loves the chat section being filled up, so please send us your questions. George and I will be sure to work through as many as we can on the show today. And with that, George, I'm glad to be here, but I think I'm the third guest host in 3 weeks, so we'll see who you have on next week.
Seems like I'm going through co-pilots, like sand through an hourglass. And I appreciate you pitch hitting for Lenny, who's was pitch hitting for Phil. So hopefully this is not a trend.
That's right.
Yeah. So before we get started, I'd like to thank our viewers, and if let them know we are streaming on Facebook, YouTube Live. And if you're watching this on YouTube Live, hit the subscribe button and get you notification on upcoming shows. And so also before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors at Thrivent. So Thrivent, over more than 10 years, Skip, Brad, and the guys at Thrivent and the girls at Thrivent have been helping people in their financial challenges. And all this month, we're looking at covering group benefits from your receiving employer. So whether that's life insurance to term life insurance, 401k to an IRA, all you got to do is take your phone and scan over that little scan button in the bottom right-hand corner and set up some time with Skip, free of charge. And you know what? There's very few things free these days. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks to Thrivent for everything they do. And George, you and I both know this all too well, but a lot of people say everybody has a book in them. Do you believe that's true?
If you'd asked me over 5 years ago, I would have wavered on the question, right? But as last 5 years have been pretty challenging, and I've learned and seen a lot of people, I do believe, and I think the fact is that anybody who has trials and tribulations, we can find a book that relates, and it actually helps people, whether it's career transition, maybe you kind of had a health problem that you've overcome insurmountable odds.
Sure.
But Eric, I want to ask you the question. Great book, by the way. Thanks this week. I already read it. Appreciate it. Great. I love rule number 3. And anybody who doesn't know rule number 3, they need to get the book to read it.
Right.
But did you feel that you had a book in you, maybe let's say 2 years before you even thought about picking up a pen?
Yeah. First of all, thanks. Appreciate it. And right back at you. I think most of our viewers have probably read your book, but great lessons learned. And rule number 3 is a thing. So someday we'll talk more about that. I kind of joke because people ask, hey, how long did it take you to write your book? And I said, it wasn't bad. It only took me 9 years. And there's a little bit of truth to that. I sort of started and stopped and started and stopped. And I'm sure that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today is, if it is something that you're passionate about or you even think you might want to do, stick with it. It did. I wrote the first chapter 9 years before I published the book, but it wasn't a bucket list item. It kind of evolved for me. And as I got into it, had a little more fun, but I do think everybody has a story to tell and everybody has a unique experience that could help others.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And you know what? Who would know even better than our special guest today? Kathy Paper, and I want to welcome her to the show. Kathy is a lot of things. She's a networking coach. She's an author. She's a natural virtual speaker. And she's also the founder of Rock Paper Star, a boutique consulting firm. And she's been helping people over 10 years launch books and tell their stories. So welcome aboard, Kathy. Really appreciate you taking time out on a Sunday morning. Or Saturday, sorry.
Yeah.
Saturdays.
That's right. Welcome, Kathy. How about you? I asked George a question. Do you think everybody has a book in them?
I do actually, and some of the statistics say 1 in 8 people wants to write a book, so they actually do put it on their bucket list. But it takes hard work, and so not as many people actually do the work and get their book out.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people know, and that's what we're here today to learn from you. But this is what you help authors do, and people thinking about writing a book. And I read somewhere that 80% of authors sell less than 1,000 copies of a book. So without giving away your secret recipe, tell us a little bit about how you help that author cross that mark or get to that step.
Well, so it is true. So people go into it with high hopes of they write their book, they want to be a New York Times bestselling author, whether it's a business book or a fiction book or a how-to book. And really, in business books, 80% of the authors sell under 1,000 copies. Okay. And partly what happens when you're thinking about that book is you've got to be very strategic from the beginning to all the way through of marketing. So if you've maybe published your book a year ago and you still have all those boxes sitting in your garage or sitting at the fulfillment house, you still can sell that book. But really thinking at the start, why am I doing this? And thinking like a new product launch. So yes, I've got sort of a formula, the Rockstar formula for how do you sell that book. So we could talk for a long time about how you do that. So you tell me where we should jump in, Eric.
But hey, Kathy, I have a question. I'm always thinking, as we go through the airport, what title would grab you? So, again, without giving away the secret sauce, how can you help somebody create a title that grabs people and it gets attention? Says, hey, not only do I want to pick up the book, but I want to read it. Like Eric's book here. Great leaders, make sure Mondays don't suck.
Exactly, which is super memorable because everybody knows that feeling of dreading going to work on a Monday morning. So it's very relatable. What you want to start with, and I got my launch in this thanks to Harvey Mackay, who's a 7-time New York Times bestselling author. And his book, those of you who haven't read it, Swim with the Sharks, is in the top 5 inspirational books of all times. Some of the ideas maybe you may seem they're too old, they're not relevant, but they really hold up. And Harvey was who actually told me, he said, Kathy, not everybody knows my name. They don't know Harvey Mackay, but they know the title, Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. Yeah. So with your title, with your story, it's about how can you be memorable? Yeah. How could you get somebody else to say, hey, what's the tipping point? Think of the books that that you would say to somebody else, you need to read this, you need this idea. So I try to tell people, could you go with something that has a little bit of a grab, but they will also know what it is that the book is about. So it's that 1-2 punch of your head and then your subhead. So I listen to people, of what are they hearing? Your audience around you that maybe has inspired you to think about writing a book. They're telling you what resonates. Yeah.
Yep. So when you work with somebody who's at various stages, what are some of the most common obstacles that you see that people need to overcome when they're working on a book?
Well, the first one I think is just kind of getting that gumption to realize I have a story to tell. Yeah. And so Eric and George, I think both of you said it really well of you want to help people. Yeah. So, at first we think, the book is all about me. I want to be the author. And it's really what's the gift that you're giving to your reader? So I suggest to people, because there's that weird, you get in your own head as you're starting to write. Yeah. And I say, write the dedication. Why are you writing this book? What's your goal with the person? Because then that makes it a more natural process. And then of course you move into how can you surround yourself with the right people to actually get the book done? Yeah. And that could range, Eric, anywhere from saying, I'm going to self-publish this book, but I know I need the discipline of a course. There are lots of online courses. We're here in Minnesota. Dan Janelle is a great, book coach, has a book, How to Write Your Book in a Flash, so that you have a process to follow to actually get the book done. Yeah. I've also advised people along the way, if you don't have time to write the book yourself, but you want to outsource it, There's so many options now between that hybrid publisher to, you can pay a lot of people a lot of money. If you're more at the celebrity level, somebody may approach you, but even still, it's hard to get those encounters. And then of course, once you're in the shoot, there's a whole process, and it's like training for a marathon. You've got to do the work.
Right.
Well, you know what? Lenny Newman is traveling, and he just wished us some good mornings from Southern Ohio. We do encourage, by the way, questions. I guess it's a really great topic, especially if you're kind of just scratching your head and maybe you're halfway through your second book or more so, and then what are the next process steps?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Kathy.
I was just going to say, so I've got a book here, again, I'm up north, but I've got the Harvey Mackay latest book, You Haven't Hit Your Peak Yet. And what's funny is on the inside cover, he shows a picture of himself with a Post-it note that says, you haven't hit your peak yet. And the joke is he had written the whole book and he knew the cover and the title wasn't quite right. Yeah. And he was like, what is the title? What is it? And he realized he had that Post-it note on his mirror, for the last 25 years saying you haven't hit your peak yet. And so as we were working through the process, it was about, what's going to be memorable. So it doesn't always follow the right recipe. Maybe you've written the book, you've outlined your chapters, but you're not sure of your title. You want to really like it. So actually, George and Eric, I say as you hold your book up, so the viewers can see your book cover. This is your show and tell moment, because you want to really love the cover. You want to love it enough so that when you're on the TV doing press, which is sort of phase 2 or 3, when you hold the book up, you're like, you know what? I am so proud and excited about this. So sometimes I'll get an author, and when they show me their book, I can tell they don't really like the cover. And I'm like, why'd you pick this? And they'll say, well, the publisher told me to do it. And I'm like, no, you gotta like, I'm not saying you don't listen to what they say, but you want to have some real connection with this because it's your baby. So one of the things after you've made your outline and maybe you've worked with someone, you want to think about what's your book cover. So I say, take a sheet of paper, wrap it around a book that's got the size and the feel that you want. And of course, in this day and age, 37% of the books are digital, but still take that physical copy and make your book cover. Because what you want to do is be able to say, I love the front, and for sure I love the back. And the back cover is where you really get an option to think about, who do you want to endorse your book? Yeah. So when I'm working with people and they say, well, I would really like Allie Love from Peloton to endorse the book, but I'll never get to her. Usually I say, you know what, stop right there, because you don't know who's in your network that can connect you to that person. And in today's day and age with social media and outreach and whatever, don't ever say no for the other person. And what's so important is you want 3 to 5 endorsements of sort of that, what's your story, who's behind your story, so that people can tell that this is a book for them. Yeah. So I like to have a variety, of maybe it's a business book and you want to have, people that are in healthcare, or you want people that are educational, or you want a nonprofit. Then you want endorsements from those people. Yeah.
So a couple things, George, if I can jump in, I'm curious from your perspective. This is so interesting that you're talking about it. I'm not exaggerating when I say this is probably version 40 of my cover art. Like I went through that. We would tweak it and we would tweak it. And, what I like about George's is, it just draws you in. The color combination is kind of striking and engaging. So I'm wondering, George, was it tough for you to land on your cover? Because I imagine, as Kathy's talking about that, I bet my first time that I self-published, it took a month longer to publish just because I was tweaking the title and the cover, to your point, Kathy.
Yeah, I think for my book, I knew I wanted it to get hired, right? That was really needed to be pop, but I didn't know what the subtitle was. And I've actually, since the book's been out a year, I've had, if you know Susan Warren, right? I spent a good hour and a half with her, and she actually told me, she goes, I love the title, maybe need to change the subtitle. She goes, because your book is more than just helping people in career transition. It's getting the job people deserve, right? And who wouldn't want to pick up that book? Because, hey, I deserve a better job, especially given the fact that we're going through the Great Resignation, right? So, but to your point, I didn't go through 40. I may have went through 5 or 6 revisions. Yeah, revisions. But I love your book. And so I'm definitely probably going to hire the person that created your cover for my next cover.
Well, we can get into that later. But hey, Lenny sent in another question for you, Kathy. I did self-publish in 2020, and then was very humbled to have Forbes Books kind of republish it in 2021. Can you talk a little bit about self-publishing versus working with a publisher?
Yep. So when you self-publish, and for people that are new to the publishing industry, look on the side of the book, and that's where you find who the publisher is. Whether you're wanting to self-publish or get a publisher, go to the bookstore or look on your bookshelf and start taking a look at things. Self-publishing, why a lot of people do this, and it came about probably 15, 20 years ago, with Amazon, it's been more popular to self-publish, is you have all the control. So you're doing everything. You can move as fast as you want. You can move as slow as you want. You still need an ISBN number. That's what gets you listed. That's what helps you there. So I recommend for people that want that control or speed to self-publish. When you're thinking about a publisher, what you're doing is you're really hiring the experts that will guide you through that process. So if you've ever done a home renovation, it would be like you being the general contractor versus hiring the general contractor that has all the right people, that has the team of editors, the artwork, knows how to upload your ebook file, helps you with the marketing and the promotion. And, publishers are really a great option for people. You can lose some of the control. You're not, with most books, you're not going to get rich off the book. But what you're going to do is to get that exposure. You're going to get your thought leadership out there. Yes, a lot of people can make money on books, but that number's really slim. I would say what happens, I think, is people think if they go with the publisher, they're going to sell the book for them. So I've had many clients come to me and say, I worked with a publisher and they were really well known, but you know what? After 3 months, they didn't do anything and I didn't sell enough books. So, just because you get a publisher or a hybrid publisher that tells you they have a marketing plan, don't assume they're going to do all that work for you. So really, I say to people, writing the book is half the process. Nancy Dahl, who I worked with, writing the book is half the process. Marketing the book is the other half. And, buckle up because it's a commitment.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was so, excited when I got my draft ready to go to the editor. And I actually had a chance to sit down with Mark LeBlanc, who's written, more than a few books. And he was like, do you want the good news or the bad news? And before I could answer, he's like, well, the good news is that, you've completed your draft. He goes, congratulations, because out of, 10 people that say they're going to write a book, 1 or 2 possibly get to this stage. I'm like, okay, well, what's the bad news? He goes, the bad news is you got to do this, and this, and you're only 40% of the way there. And I'm like, oh my God. He goes, that's the reason why people don't finish a book.
Yeah. And Kathy, I'm curious, and maybe you've answered the question, but to George's point, are there common obstacles that you see for authors that are the biggest ones to overcome?
Yeah. One is the being a perfectionist, thinking that you have to do it all. So there's that of you just think it's got to be perfect. I don't want everything, they wait so long that you lose your momentum to invite other people in, which is sort of the second piece is let other people help you. I'm not a good editor. I'm not a good designer. So what do I do? So another book, in town, Jamie Tates, who's written this book and published with Wise Ink, they're in Minnesota. Wise Ink and Beaver Pond Press are great in town resources, but it's how do you market it? And in COVID, people are trying to figure out what is it that you do to get your book out there. So that's one of the obstacles is that they say, I'm going to write the book and then I'm going to start marketing. And you really want to be a dual track, writing the book and thinking about marketing at the same time. So that's another obstacle.
Yeah. Kirkhouse Publishing took a chance on me. I was nobody out there. And they got me out there on, on Amazon, Kindle, Barnes and Noble online. You know, it's helped me at least get a little bit more exposure.
Yeah. The other piece, I would tell both of you too, if you haven't yet already, or you want to do it, is apply for awards.
Yeah.
The publishing industry knows, they know the challenges that authors face. So they've set up these ways by having awards, so that when you get an award, then that sends it all out to their communities and their networks. So that's one other way. I think another obstacle is, some people don't ever do a book launch and sort of celebrate with your network. It's like, start with your inner circle. Your inner circle is who starts telling other people about your book. So again, back to Harvey, when he first launched Swim with the Sharks, I remember going to Barnes and Noble. He had 300 people in there, all his friends, and he would do it in multiple cities.
Yeah.
And what it does is it sells 300 books in that Barnes and Noble, right?
Right.
And then the system tells all the other Barnes and Nobles that this book called Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive sold. And all those store managers go, oh, I should get that book. I'll order 100 copies.
Right.
And boom, that's how it goes.
Yeah. Well, George, I'm curious. I mean, I love on your book, you've got your award here. One of your awards. I think you've won a couple, but I mean, did you see a lift in response once you were able to post that you won that award? I'm sure you did.
Yeah, definitely. And I have Ann Albitz of Kirkhouse Publishing to thank. She actually got me into those award. I mean, I was going up against some stiff competition. People who've been, multiple authors, and I had no chance, heck, that I thought I would get it. But hey, Kathy, time goes by so fast on these shows. One last question, is, and I can tell you my story, but it would take too long. How important is, and when should somebody start to market their book?
Oh, I touched on this a little bit by saying sort of that 2 tracks is the minute why I have people wrap their book is that's when you start thinking about marketing. When you write your dedication and you're thinking, who am I writing to? That's where you're starting to think, who's my target? Who do I want to reach? Who do I want to help with the message that will change something? So start your marketing as you're sitting there, and maybe as you're typing on your computer, keep a note of, I'd really like this person to promote it, or, somebody that you admire that's there. So I'd start marketing at the same time you're outlining your chapters. And then of course, work with somebody, because it's overwhelming without a plan. To know what do I do? Where do I start? And how I got into this was I would see authors with really great content spend thousands of dollars and not sell books and be frustrated and wonder what was going on. And I'm like, no, we can customize this so that you're efficient.
Yeah, I would love to get Bill George to market my book, or at least endorse it.
Well, we should invite him onto your LinkedIn Live.
Yeah.
Well, Kathy, again, I appreciate it. And, it's been so inspiring as far as people out there, because I tell you, I get a lot of people that say, hey, you know what? I just don't know where to start. I don't know, but they can turn around and reach out to you.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations again to both of you for doing it. I've published a workbook, but I've got a new book coming out too. So it's going to be great.
When's it coming out?
Yeah. Let's hear about it.
I don't know. And one of my tips is you're supposed to set a date, and I'm chicken to set a date. So yeah.
I set a date.
I will share with everyone, when I was early in the process of my self-published, I did have a great conversation with Kathy, and like today's conversation, it was so helpful. So I do encourage anyone who's at whatever stage, I have a dream or I'm halfway there, reach out to Kathy, because as you heard today, I mean, she's a wealth of knowledge. She offered me some incredible things to think about, and I think she could be a great starting point for anyone who's starting the journey or at some stage of the journey. So
absolutely.
It takes a village.
Yeah, absolutely.
It takes a village. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Kathy.
Take care.
You bet.
Bye. Well, those shows go by faster and faster, especially as we get really deep into a lot of the challenges. I mean, this one I think is near and dear to my heart as my next book comes out. And I definitely want to make sure that we thank Kathy Paper. If you guys, again, are thinking about a book, you want to turn around or you're halfway there and you kind of stalled, or you're almost across the finish line and you just need to understand how to get to third base and home run, reach out to Kathy. I know that Eric has, I have multiple times. She's a wealth of knowledge and she helps people well over 10 years launch their books. So, hey, who wouldn't want a subject matter expert to carry them across the finish line?
Right. Well, and speaking of books, George, I know you are well on your way to book number 2, and we're all excited about that. The next show, February 19th, is going to be kicking off a 12-part series based on your upcoming book that's focused on leadership engagement.
Yes. Again, we're going to have great speakers. Some are authors, some are C-suites, some are in the coaching field. And I got to tell you, Kathy, as well as Kathleen Crandall, I think I'm pretty close to the title of my book, probably more like Ignite, Engage, and Retain is probably where I'm going to land in. So, but we're going to go over top 12 subjects or chapters in there, and we're going to start off by the big disconnect. And I think halfway through, I've already got speakers lined up, and I just need to get the other half. But I'm looking forward to it. It's an effort to help business leaders as well as business owners really help with this whole great resignation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for joining. George, thanks for letting me pinch hit for Lenny, who was pinch hitting last week. I hope everybody enjoys their weekend. Really appreciate you sharing your morning with us. And remember to always focus on moving forward and getting better at what you're focused on improving.
Absolutely. And hey, Eric, I appreciate again those people who are looking for talent or looking for a speaker to excite their business and their leaders. You know, you can reach out to Eric at gkgconsultants.com, or just hit him up on LinkedIn like everybody else, or at least I do.
Yeah. Check me out on LinkedIn. My website's ericharkins.com, and would love to connect with any of you and keep a conversation like this going.
Hey, good Saturday, everyone.
Thanks, George. Have a great weekend.